the truth of the matter, and you said it so well, Dr. Vibe, there are countless Black, African/Caribbean students, international students who are here in our cities who are struggling.
It's hard to know because we don't have like the data to say what is the state of Black health before and after. And that's something that we've been advocating for, right? We need better race-based data that's done in a way that serves us, because race-based data has been collected on different groups in ways that actually cause harm, but we need it to be done with us in a way that serves
What
us.
is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team, I've reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. And as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And we're broadcasting live on Sunday, October 5th on Black Canada Talking. And what is Black Canada Talking? Well, let me tell you what Black Canada Talking is all about. It is a live conversation where Black Canadians get an opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories and events that are of importance to them. And our regular on this epic conversation is Cesar Ndema-Moussa, who is not at home because the little one is not there today, unfortunately.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Vibe. Thank you so much. Yes. On the road for work. I'm here. Just arrived at the hotel a few minutes ago.
Wow. And what role are you playing over the next few days or day in regards to where you are at?
Well, I'm here for consulting purposes, and notably in my position as Regional Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusivity Issues in child welfare, but really addressing all issues that may come related to that nature for public servants, including the fact that I will address, and we will talk about it a little bit, address what we should say the commemoration 1 year after of the Israel, Gaza, and now Lebanon conflict. And something very important that I want our people but as well allies, is it is important to not forget the most serious human rights and humanitarian conflict is actually in Africa, in Sudan. Close to us, we have Haiti, and it's truly a 200-year-long situation. Right. And many other conflicts, such as in Ethiopia, but also in Burma, where Black people, Black-skinned people, including in Burma, you wouldn't think about it, but yes, it is dark-skinned people are strongly victimized, and there is media silence truly about their fate, unlike what happens in other parts of the world.
Wow. Well, you are always on the road to championing justice wherever you can. So I know wherever you are going, you're championing justice. So let me just do a few things housekeeping wise. Please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Also, if you want to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm a part of, please feel free to email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Also, if you want to get in contact with Cesar, email address, president@rootsandculturecanada.com, and there is his Facebook address, Cesar Rime Emery. So you gave a great segue on our first conversation topic. Tomorrow, Monday, October 6th, is the 1-year anniversary of the Hammas attack on Israel. And what are your thoughts you'd like to share with our family today from a Black and Pan-Africanist lens about that?
So tomorrow, October 7th, 1 year, and it is not a celebration, it's a commemoration, because first and foremost, we have to say, and we have to repeat, we are killing of innocent lives, whether they be at a dance music festival and they happen to be Jewish or Israeli. Innocent lives, whether they are in Gaza, living among the families and getting a bomb dropped on them. Innocent lives, whether they are in Lebanon, South Lebanon, or in Beirut, the capital, a very urbanized city, just as we speak of innocent lives in Congo, in Haiti, and any of our Black nations. So I would say for our people to remember, just as I was saying, there are Black people who are dying on both sides of these conflicts. And when I say both sides, I should actually extend that because there are also Black Lebanese, not only Black migrants, but I'm talking about nationals, including mixed biracial Lebanese. So there are Black people who are dying, Black Jews as Black. We don't see their faces on the screens. We don't hear about them. But further to that, we must not forget a very important part here. Black consciousness has been a part of the struggle, not only for an Israeli state in terms of following World War II and the genocide of Jewish people. Many people, many Black people may have an issue with what I'm saying here, but I would invite them to revisit the creation of the largest civil rights organization of the United States, the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, which was created in 1909 by Black people and people who at the time were not considered white, Jewish people. But at the same time, it's important to mention, especially since the 1960s, and yes, people may remember here, Dr. Martin Luther King, walking with notably a Jewish rabbi, Rabbi Heschel, but we must not be fooled. Although it was not the majority, and here I must also denounce that there is, I don't like the term anti-Semitism, to be quite honest, because, for example, Arabs are also Semites, but there are strong sentiments against Jewish people, notably in the Black community. Yes, there are Jewish businessmen who did participate in the slave trade. So Black people indeed were enslaved by white Catholics, white Protestants, white Muslims, but also white Jews. But in any case, it was never majority of those groups. But we must also remind that, yes, there was a collaboration in terms of Black consciousness and early Zionism in standing up against white supremacy that was oppressing both groups. Hitler made that very clear in terms of enemies of the white, Aryan, etc. race, Jews and Blacks being at the bottom. But we cannot deny the fact that Black liberation, Black consciousness has also been, especially since the 60s, a strong supporter of the cause of Palestine, especially since, I would say, the mid-60s, especially 1967, following the Six-Day War, when Israel tripled its territory, having defeated, I believe, 5 other Arab nations. Black consciousness has been, basically, it has more from supporting Zionism, aka the creation of a state of Israel for Jewish people, aka for white nations, solving the Jewish problem, as it was called. It has morphed from supporting Zionism, and yes, we do have many Black politicians who support Zionism. Let's not be hypocrite here. It has morphed overwhelmingly to supporting Palestine in the fight against colonization. We can think about notably the Black Panthers. Anyone can Google this, Palestinian Black Panthers. There was a chapter of the Black Panthers in Palestine, and as I've already explained before, in other parts of the world, including in India for the Dalit, aka those at the bottom of the caste and racial system, the Dalit, and below the Dalit are the descendants of the African slaves. So, see a year after this terrible tragedy, we also have to be honest, as unpleasant it will be for some people to hear. The very nature of colonization will call for resistance, and some, in the name of resistance, will seek ways that we could indeed call by any means necessary. And as such, there will be a response that will be, as the state of Israel has an official policy, disproportionate response to the attacking and killing of Jewish people. What happened last year on October 7, 2023, was the largest program, aka targeted killing of Jewish people, the largest program since World War II. We cannot minimize Jewish pain. It would be hypocritical. There are, it would be hard to fool oneself looking at how many Nobel Prize laureates are Jewish, up to, I think, a quarter of Nobel Prize laureates. And that gets explained. I can explain that in another. But the Jewish population is a very small population in the world. It's a very small population in the world to which we must understand that the killing of 1,200, some people say 1,400, 1,200 to 1,400 Jewish people on October 7, 2023, in a state of Israel, which counts, if I recall, less than 10 million people. You can only imagine how many thousands of people proportionally that would be if it was in the United States with 350 million people. It's a tragedy. But we cannot be hypocritical when we see, some people will like to mock it by calling it the Hammas Health Bureau and claiming the numbers are inaccurate. Well, no, I disagree. The devastation that we see, notably on Al Jazeera, but also speaking to the people who have lost their lives, over 40,000 people, and it is claimed that 2/3 of the people killed are women and children. The greatest calamity, someone may want to look this up, but this is from my own analysis, the greatest calamity to have happened to Palestinian people since the Nakba, aka 1948, when they were evicted by force from their homes and left their homes for many of following the creation of the state, the modern state of Israel, Eretz Yisrael. So we have two tragedies, and these two tragedies are now impacting my country, Lebanon. Let us be honest. Hezbollah began sending rockets, firing rockets into Israel, into northern Israel, in support to Hamas. And as such, Israel has retaliated with targeted assassination that also are killing civilians. We heard about the pager blowing up and the walkie-talkies blowing up, but also the missiles. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy to which, notably for us here in Canada, in the East Coast, if you have friends, colleagues from Lebanon, but also who are Jewish, take a moment to look after them, to give a call, to check on them. They may have families and friends back home, because when it happens to our people, we as Black people appreciate the allyship, the solidarity, to inquire, hey, I heard what's going on in Haiti, what's going on in Jamaica, what's going on in Canada. That's something very important that I invite our people to remember. And It's very tragic, and if I can say one last thing, quite unfortunately, if we are to be truly honest with ourselves, we are in 2024. Is it that hard to imagine what will happen in 15 to 20 years from now? The cycle of violence will not stop until there is a creation of a Palestinian state, which seems more and more of an illusion, notably as long as a certain Bibi, aka Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, remains in power and notably use right-wing Jewish supremacists in his government for this conflict, in the same sense as for Palestinians, extremists having the means to cause harm, basically the peacemakers being killed, being taken away. It's it's paving a road to conflict, and a conflict that could be regional with notably Iran. And when we say Iran, Saudi Arabia, but also USA, China. I am not here claiming a poetry prophecy type of thing. No, I don't think it can go there. But what I know for sure is that it will impact us, notably in the price of goods. And
Yes.
furthermore, it will impact us in terms of public safety. Let us not forget last year how um, yeshivas, Jewish schools, would be targeted. Same sense, a rise of Islamophobia. I don't like the term Islamophobia as well. So sentiments and actions against Muslim people. So in our multicultural nations, what happens over there, anywhere in the world, ends up having an impact over here, wherever we are in the world.
So, and I appreciate as always you share with us. I just want to get just some more clarity. Why should Pan-Africans and Blacks be concerned? Because a number of Pan-Africanists and Blacks say that's happening over there. We got our
Yeah,
own thing.
absolutely.
Why do they need to be, from your lens or your thoughts? Why should they be concerned?
Well, first of all, I do agree with that sentiment in the sense that I myself, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago, no, 3 years ago maybe, I had published on my Facebook that I refuse to now be posting about the conflict in the Middle East because far too often those are the Middle East. They're not posting about what's happening in Congo, in Haiti. They're not posting about it. There's a lack of solidarity the other way around. Oh, don't get me wrong. Let's not be hypocritical. Strong Palestinian support regarding Black Lives Matter and against police brutality in the USA. But that is mainly because the police in the USA are heavily trained by police from Israel who are training and aka targeting, victimizing Palestinians. So there is a common cause there. But in terms of pure support and solidarity due to injustice, the truth of the matter is this: we seldom see non-Black supporting Black causes per se, unlike, for example, back in the 1980s against apartheid, where truly there was a global, very much Western movement of solidarity against apartheid. However, from the moment that we can recognize and admit to ourselves that there are Black Palestinians, Black Israelis, Black people in Lebanon who are being killed, who are being victimized, they already live in spaces where racism, systemic racism, is not addressed, except in Israel, to be honest. But to further be victimized and yet be made invisible on the screens when we watch the news, what news channel has given, has given the microphone to a Black Palestinian or a Black Jewish person? And we're talking here about a part of the world. I mean, we look at the images of devastation in Gaza. When COVID hit here, arguably the biggest tragedy since, let's say, September 11, but truly, for the desegregation of data did show that Black people were more impacted by COVID than any other groups. What desegregation of data are we having regarding the Middle East Palestinian-Israeli conflict when systemic racism is not even acknowledged? When we are seeing those images about Gaza, what is the fate of these Black families who already were in lower socioeconomic status? Because national Palestinians, Black national Palestinians are actually the descendants of the slave trade that established itself in Palestine. Meanwhile, when you look at Lebanon, it's overwhelmingly foreign workers. So again, lower socioeconomics. In Israel, you can see Black Lives Matter protests during the time of COVID in Israel due to systemic racism against the, people call them falasha. I invite our people not to use the term falasha. It's an insult. It means those, the landless, those without homes, the Beta Israel, House of Israel, Black Ethiopian Jews were already at the bottom of Israeli society. So, as a Pan-Africanist, my vision of Pan-Africanism is not as in the 1960s, aka supporting Israel just because of the genocide in World War II, and I did support Israel. It is not just to support Palestine because of the fight against colonization, and I did support Palestine. But it is to recognize that, first of all, there are innocents dying in that conflict, whatever the skin color. So that makes it an injustice to which we must stand up to. Because ultimately, the decision makers seldom are being killed and or are having the families killed. Anyone who wants to bring to me the current fate of some of the Hammas and Hezbollah leaders, well, I ask the question, the Israeli leaders are not being killed. So there is far more security and security for those leaders than for the unknown, the relative unknown. But at the same time, because we do have Black people over there, Black people Middle East are greatly unseen. We tend to think Black people are only in Africa, the USA, the Americas, and Europe. No, there are Black people in the four corners of the world. There are Black Russians, there are Black Chinese, there are Black Japanese, there are Black people in Indonesia and the Philippines. Dr. Vibe, you know this.
Oh, yeah.
There's Black people in the Yukon and Northwest Territories.
Absolutely. When I traveled to Yellowknife, Northwest Territories a few weeks before the pandemic, there was a sizable Somali population.
There you go.
And I said, wow, so we are everywhere.
Everywhere. And it's true. I mean, this is not some Afrocentrism, but science says it. We are the original people, original humans. All life comes from Africa. Don't get me wrong, this is not what some people will call Black supremacy. I don't do such. But let's just call things what they are. So we have to be able to have a Pan-Africanism that, yes, has a fist up, of course. But a Pan-Africanism that also addresses climate change, absolutely. But a Pan-Africanism that in addressing modern issues such as artificial intelligence and Black people has to also look at human rights and conflict from a Black lens and recognize that it may not seem like that conflict is one that we should care about, but because those people who look like us, who are victimized in that conflict, we also have to care about it. I am not here talking about taking sides per se. People will take sides whichever way they want. But to what extent can we just commemorate, some people will say celebrate, the killings of this amount of people and stay silent to the killing of that amount of people, while at the same time forgetting that these people will look like us on both sides. That is not my Pan-Africanism.
Got it. Got it. All right, family, we are going to take a short little break before we continue on our conversation. That you're watching Black Canada Talking with myself, Dr. Vibe, and Cesar Ndema-Moussa. And when we come back, oh, that American election, we got more and more people on the campaign trail, and it never stops. So we'll be back in about 30 seconds. Prime Time Saturday with Aisha and Lala. Join Aisha K. Staggers and Laura Lala Key as they cut through the chaos and make some sense of the nonsense in American news and politics.
People are expecting Obama-level eloquence out of a man who's always talked like this.
Sharp insights, bold opinions, and a touch of humor. It's the show that keeps you informed and entertained.
There's no way that Trump is going to debate her.
Don't miss Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala. Tune in and stay ahead of the headlines. Yeah, we are back. Black Canada Talking, and then Saturday nights, Primetime Saturday with Isha K. Staggers and Laura Lalaki. And earlier on, last Tuesday, we had another epic get-together. There was the debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, who are vice president candidates. And one of the people taking part in the live watch party was Cesar. And Cesar, what were your thoughts on that conversation?
Oh, great conversation. We have to do this more often. Honestly, the joining of Black conscious, Black activists, Black involved community members on both sides of the frontier, USA and Canada, uplifting the race, bringing the analysis with a Black lens. Don't get me wrong. Means, but they tend to be divided in terms of Democrats and Republicans, not
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. So in the comment section where most people are watching the replay or live before the end of our conversation, I'll put the link up for the replay. Certainly check it out. So as we segue, we have new people join the campaign trail of Kamala Harris and Donald 45. I didn't say his last name. I will usually just say 45. 45. So, Cesar, what were your thoughts about Liz Cheney joining campaigning with Democratic candidate Kamala Harris?
I think it's how can I say it? It's a game changer in terms of the extent to which some people will say, how do you say? Some people will claim it to be a political maneuvering against Trump per se, but I think it's more a matter of assessing the extent to which Trump is seen as a threat to democracy, even among long-term conservatives and Republicans. In order for them to, what one could say, betray their own party by joining the Democratic candidate for the presidential elections. This is not the Democratic candidate for mayor of the city or for governor. It's for the highest office. But at the same time, it speaks volumes to the entrenchment of the MAGA mentality in America in terms of how, I think it was one of our sisters from the US who were saying, it's hard to understand why this campaign is still close despite everything that has been revealed regarding Donald Trump. It speaks volume to the fact of, the state of America in terms of ideologically, socially, where and something that I found out, you are having some communities that are creating themselves based on ideological leanings. Basically, people creating in America closed gate communities based on their political affiliations. Do not get me wrong. I don't do conspiracy theories. This is so far what I've heard. I haven't been able to check it. So please, someone feel free to fact check that if it's true, but that's something that I've learned. Just as back in 2016, 2020, you had some families who were splitting regarding presidential elections, regarding Trump versus Hillary and Trump versus Biden. You are having communities that are separating themselves, and actually there might be some truth to it. Kind of in the logic of the redlining system in America, you are having more white conservative small communities that are separating themselves from the more multicultural slash Black and Latino neighborhoods to create their own communities in regards to taxation and services. So, I mean, an empire does not get destroyed simply from the outside. It begins on the inside. And in the case of America, I would say right now we live in a time that seems, in many ways similar to the 1960s. Many ways, not always. But truthfully, what I keep talking about, the dumbing down of America that's been going on for 40 years, that's what has created this situation in which value more the opinions and emotivity than fact and reason. And someone like Trump, that's why he plays on. That's why he plays on to basically always paint himself as the victim. Meanwhile, he has no problem propagating racism, sexism. I mean, his own wife came out with a memoir in which she stands for abortion rights. I mean, if you can't, I mean, as a politician, there are certain rules that are expected that your family is going to be on your side, or at least they're going to put on a mask in public. I mean, you look at what's his name, Shady Vance, and I really said Shady, not JD. You look at Shady Vance, his wife was Indian. I am not the only one wondering what she really thinks about the comments her husband is making about immigrants and the. I mean, literally, this guy is in a party that would kick out his wife out of America. She's not white enough. In a sense, you're having someone like Donald Trump who is extreme enough that someone as conservative as Liz Cheney, the daughter of Dick Cheney, a man who was borderline portrayed as a devil 20 years ago, going to side with Kamala Harris, a woman that many Republicans have painted as a DEI hire, aka that she's not good enough. She's just there because she's a Black woman, as if she doesn't have years and decades of professional experience to deserve being in the place where she's at. So, and of course, Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
What do you think? You didn't say anything else after that. Your thoughts on that?
Well, you see, where there needs to be much explanation in terms of Liz Cheney joining Kamala Harris, it doesn't require much regarding Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Both white men born with a silver spoon, Donald Trump having a large inheritance from his dad, Elon Musk, as he joked once being about the real African American, from South Africa to the USA. Elon Musk was dad owned, if I recall, I can't recall if it's a diamond mine in South Africa, but he's also born with a silver spoon. But ultimately, you are having the white lash, white reactionary of white, how can I put it? Older white men who are not in sync with the changing times that they live in. They want to turn back the clock. They want to basically, I mean, if they could go back to the 1950s, when colonization was still the norm, and, they would do it. They would do it. And I think it's important to understand that here you have two men united by, how can I put it? It's a rejection of evolution. Both Elon Musk and Donald Trump actually were Democrats. But as the Democratic Party and society became more and more brown and conscious, aka woke, they started to feel resentment in the whiteness. So, that whole aspect about white fragility and addressing oneself, deconstructing, they rejected that and they're going further and further to the fringes. The difference, of course, is that they have a lot of means. One is the richest man in the world. The other one is the most famous celebrity. He's not the best president by far. He's the worst president. I think a study or survey showed that he was the worst or the second worst president of all time in the US. But he is the most famous celebrity in the world since Michael Jackson has died, we should say. But no, you basically have the resentment of the white boys with a lot of money, political connections, and etc., will have no shame, no remorse in manipulating information, in stories, in flipping narratives and everything. If they could burn the Constitution of the United States and reframe it, kind of creating a society as Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, they would do it. If we are to be honest, and I love always making references to Hitler and the Nazi. That's what the Nazi and Hitler did. They came to power through democracy and the interests of other people, and they made sure as fast as possible, they made sure to stoke fear and hate in order to reach their gains and stay in power. So we are seeing very similar things happening here in terms of stoking hate and fear, overwhelmingly over a white population that is diminishing, because demographics is a very important factor here in the US, in the Western world, and in the world all over. I keep reminding our people, all studies speak to, by the end of this century, I didn't say black, I said African. And Brazil is a country outside of Africa that counts the most black people. It's the second country, sorry, my apologies. Nigeria is still number one, and actually, even that is not exactly correct. Congo's population is exploding. Nigeria, Ethiopia. These people, these fragile white men, were very resentful of the evolution of societies. Control their own body and their minds. Of black consciousness, aka the rising fist of the growth of Islam. Not because people are converting, contrary to what many Muslims like to lie about, but simply because of birth rate. And also of the Dragon Reborn. For those who are fans of the Wheel of Time, they will understand. By the Dragon Reborn, I'm talking about China. Of colonialism.
Always staying quiet. Always staying quiet.
But always making moves through the
Yes.
bricks and everything else.
Yes.
And
Yes.
further, you see further independence from Saudi Arabia and many of these Arab Muslim countries beyond oil. So the world is changing, and white men as Elon Musk and Donald Trump and many others, notably billionaires, they're scared because guess what? There's not another planet for them to go to at this moment.
True.
We shall cohabit.
Do you feel someone like an Elon Musk will have impact on any voters?
Absolutely. We never never minimize the impact of someone who has not only money, but fame and influence. And in the words of one of our great heroes, Malcolm X, the media will have you hating. I mean, I'm not exactly citing him, but the media will have you hating the victim and sympathizing with the oppressor. Elon Musk controlling Twitter is as dangerous as any media, notably newspapers, controlled by the rich and powerful to conduct the narrative. We see this in France, we see this in the US, in England, in Canada, all over the world. So we cannot minimize the impact. A man with deep pockets, and Elon is the man with the deepest pockets right now in the world. Some studies speak about him potentially becoming the first trillionaire. He has the deepest pockets.
Yeah, he does. He certainly does, and he does have influence, whatever it
He,
is.
ha- he has influence, but let's not forget something very important also here.
Yeah.
Musk, as Trump, are tapping into the mindset of people who are already willing. They're not exactly converting people. Like someone like me, they won't convert me. But they are tapping into the mindset of people who are, look at it, largely uneducated, largely white, largely lower socioeconomics. It's a common game which in politics, there is a study about it. Why Kansas votes Republicans, meanwhile Republicans keep making life harder and worse for people in Kansas, aka white people in Kansas, because they have been in the white people in Kansas, and this is just a study, of course. I'm not speaking about each and every white person in Kansas, but white supremacy has convinced the average white person that the worst thing for them is to be on the same plane as black people. And as such, for many white people, just as we saw, I believe in 2016 or 2017, Charlottesville, they're walking with the tiki torches. You will not replace us. Well, dear racist white people, because that's exactly what they are, but also dear ignorant white people, because that's what many of them are. They're not racist, they are sincerely ignorant. The ancestors of your ancestors were black. As painful and as much you don't want to hear it. And until we find another planet to live on, aka to colonize, and even without it, considering multiculturalism, interracial relationships, and listen, living in a global village, well, the descendants of your descendants might be black too, or they might be Muslim, or they might be LGBTQ, or there might be a lot of things that you hate right now, but wake up, evolve. It doesn't mean to agree with everything and anything, but Musk and Trump are playing into white fragility, hate, and fear. Just look at the meetings of Trump. Look at the difference in the crowd, how white it is, versus the meetings of Kamala Harris, how diverse it is. What kind of America do we want? A Western world do we want? Not everything is perfect, but what kind of society do we want to live in? What kind of society do I want my 3-year-old daughter to become a part of as an adult when she's in her 20s, 30s, 40s, and later?
Got it. Yeah. What do we want the future to look like? Are we setting up the next generation for success?
That's exactly, this is what this is about. It's beyond this election. It is, we are in 2024 in which the studies speak about roughly 2035, aka 11 years, white will no longer be the majority, demographically speaking, in the United States. 2050 or roughly, America will no longer truly be the number one superpower. Yes, they will be the number one military power. But in a multi-regional world, notably when you see things as BRICS, when you see further and further nations rejecting the US dollar as a trade currency, this is a rejection of hegemony. There comes a point when you can no longer go claim to bring freedom.
Yeah.
With the aircraft carrier and the AR-15. And at the same time, we are living in a century in which, as I said earlier, all studies and statistics speak by the end of this century, 1/3 of human beings being African. It's extremely scary for those whites who basically look at the history and are so proud to say names like Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Carolus Magnus, Charles the Great, Napoleon and Hitler as the heroes. And now they're seeing all these brown and black faces and other religions rising, becoming more conscious, becoming better organized. I am not preaching for a clash of civilization.
That's amazing.
I'm fighting for a better society in consciousness and activism.
All right. We're going to take another quick break and come to our last conversation for the day. And I did not know about this till Cesar brought up, but it has been an ongoing situation in the province of Quebec, and it touches on a number of things. Immigration, labor, racism, a whole pile of stories tied into one. So we're going to end off on that. Well, we'll be right back on Black Canada Talking with Dr. Vibe and Cesar. Keep it locked. Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala. Join Aisha K. Staggers and Laura Lala Key as they cut through the chaos and make some sense of the nonsense in American news and politics.
That's not a big enough sample to even say that this is representative of anything.
Sharp insights, bold opinions, and a touch of humor. It's the show that keeps you informed and entertained.
Those polls have you thinking, oh, I don't need to go there.
Don't miss Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala. Tune in and stay ahead of the headlines. We are back. Black Canada Talking with Dr. Vibes. One of the reasons I really appreciate Cesar is he always brings things onto the landscape that I am not aware of. And he struck gold again today. Our last conversation topic is the African brain drain as Quebec is trying to get more African nurses. So can you give us some background on this, Cesar, and then where it stands out? Because I even have some up-to-date stuff I've seen on it also. But can you share with our audience about this, the background on this situation?
Well, it's important to understand really what's going on here as we speak of brain drain. Brain drain refers to a richer country taking educated people from a poor country to benefit them in the richer country. And a perfect example of this is in the medical field. Nurses and doctors who are born and raised, educated and trained in the country of origin, aka a poor country, but who are given incentives, aka a better life, better pay, to come into the usually Western, richer country. In principle, of course, let's not be hypocritical. It's a great deal for that individual. But when you add tens, hundreds, and thousands of these elites, it becomes a major problem in regards to the development of the poorer country. And one of the things that has happened is that I'm looking here at an article from the Globe and Mail from the Canadian Health Workforce Network. Canada has saved $400 million by poaching doctors from Africa. And further to that, we have to think here about the context of COVID, in which notably the province of Quebec, but not so many African nurses that it became a drain to the healthcare system of those African countries. And I'm talking here from Morocco to Cameroon, my birth country where I'm born. It's so tragic. Allow me to really paint this. Uh, let's put it this way. The situation is so tragic, one has to understand that you have basically African nations that have that basically have uh, despite talking about governance and corruption, the type of rhetorics that are always attributed to African countries, as if there are no governance and corruption issues in the Western world. But in my birth country of Cameroon, as we speak of, the rate is of 1.9 nurse per 10,000 citizens. Meanwhile, in Quebec, it is of 100 nurses per 10,000 citizens. But on top of that, these African nurses brought in Quebec, notably because they come from Francophone countries such as Morocco and Cameroon, needed. So you have the brain drain from Africa to the richer Western nation as Canada and the province of Quebec. And even within those Western nations, they are then victims of mistreatment, of racism, of lower employment between the employment that they are advertised to come versus the employment that they end up doing. A salary discrepancy that basically makes them not free laborers per se, but in contrast to the white counterparts, borderline free labor. It is, and of course, it's demoralizing because even when we speak about, wow, going back to school, accreditation, nurses and doctors, but also engineers and etc., from Africa, they have families that they need to provide for back home. It's a continuation of colonialism. It's colonialism, neoliberalism, is geopolitical strength that's manifested. So Quebec has agreed to stop, as the title says, stop hiring African nurses to protect vulnerable healthcare systems back home in Africa. The ambassador of Morocco has applauded that decision because, I mean, geopolitics is unfair. The strong preys on the weak. That's what it is. We're talking about in Africa where we have hundreds and thousands of people who died in sea for a better life in Europe. Meanwhile, we have other thousands who are being put on a plane to come to a Western nation to enrich them, but it's causing the death of people back home because these professionals, these educated, these elites, are serving their own people.
I had no idea about this, but this has been going on for a long time.
Long time.
Right. And not just with countries in Africa, but look at West Indies, the Caribbean. Same.
It's a colonial practice. It's a
Yeah.
colonial practice because, to give you the context, during the time of colonization, we were the educated indigenous, the sons of the chief, for example. The leaders of independence, you go back in the 1950s, they were the elites who the black faces of the colonial administration. So they were not educated to benefit the indigenous people, to benefit Africa. They were not educated to benefit India. If we take the Indian example, they were educated to benefit the colonial. Anything that you're seeing here with a difference, these African nations are educating and training their own into the Western world without a proper return of services. It's not as if Western governments are giving X amount of millions to these African nations for their development, for taking their nurses and doctors.
And you know what? I found another article that it expands on this situation a little bit more, and it relates to your home country, Cameroon. I'm just going to put up this article for you to just share. And it tells the root causes of Cameroon's youth brain drain. High living costs, few employment opportunities, and a desire to support their families are driving many Cameroonian youths to emigrate.
Mhm.
You know, and President Paul Biya released a statement lamenting the youth's increasing desire to leave the Central African nation for greater opportunities. And Labor Senate says Biya appealed to young Cameroons a sense of patriotism and duty to remain in Cameroon, saying leaving, quote, was not the solution, unquote, to Cameroon's problems.
Let's be fair to the youth leaving. Strong governance issues and corruptions are a plague all over Africa and notably in Cameroon. I mean, Cameroon, President Paul Biya is the oldest statesman in the world.
91.
The oldest, and he has been in power since 1982.
Wow.
So this is like, let's not pretend the youth are lacking patriotism. The youth feel stuck in a system in which they are not seeing the light, as any president dictator would properly do. The succession is within his own ranks, aka his own family. So again, beyond him, what is the hope? What is the light? So for many, it's best to immigrate. And I'm not here doing any hypocrisy. I am born in since kindergarten when I was in France. When you have a situation such as this, and for those who do not know, Cameroon's nickname is Africa in miniature. So if you don't have time to visit all 54 countries and you can only visit one, visit Cameroon. But also understand the issues in Cameroon, while you have them in all those other countries, where basically one of the fundamental things that happen is that's dynamic, that's entrepreneurial, that's driven, that's healthy and strong. I mean, people were understandably concerned with COVID in terms of how many people, millions of people it could kill in Africa. Africa, which is the epicenter of the HIV/AIDS crisis, because HIV/AIDS is still killing people. If I recall, 2/3 of people dying of AIDS are in Africa. But surprise, surprise, COVID did not kill as many Africans as expected. When you have a locked-in system, and if you are truly honest, governance, corruption, but it's also neocolonialism. No African leader, no African comes to power and remains in power for so long without Western support. It doesn't exist. So when you have such a locked-in system, it's not so much that the youth lack patriotism. Where are the options? And for those who are educated, when one of the options become drain in question, it is hard to tell someone stay and suffer in an unequal system. Unequal because you have high poverty and high wealth with little to non-existent middle class. So when you have such context, it is very hard to tell someone stay and be in this, remain in the struggle Meanwhile, there is a call for you to go have a better life for yourself and your family overseas. It's like telling someone from the hood to stay in the hood out of pride. Meanwhile, they can go live in the basically white neighborhood that has been gentrified. If you have Popeyes in the hood with the realities of the hood, I'm purposely using some cliche scenarios, so this is nothing against Popeyes nor Starbucks. I mean, I consume neither, so
They're not getting any gas out of it.
exactly. So if you have Popeyes in the hood that offers you a job with the realities of the hood, and you have Starbucks where you can work in the gentrified white part of the city, is it that hard to imagine that a lot of brothers and sisters will go get that job at Starbucks and rub shoulders with the white staff and black community to seek a white partner to get out of the hood, to code switch? Eddie Griffin, undercover brother. So these are the realities in question. It is not lack of patriotism. It is not loving the hood per se. It is not loving Cameroon or no. It is if we don't improve the situation in our communities, in our countries, just as for example when we talk about, I mean, I'm making a tangent to this other topic that's so common in the black community. Why is it that we have so many black athletes marrying white women? Well, if you don't raise black consciousness, but you don't also raise black living standards within the communities, you're bound to have this happening. You will have our people going to other communities because, interestingly, we don't have people of other communities trying to come into our communities to marry our own, other than to set up business and shops to take money from our communities. The business and the private relation and the public relation, state governance are all linked because it is all connected. Why would I stay in poverty and the struggle if there is a chance? Even if it's 1%, aka the people dying in the Mediterranean Sea, even if it's 1% for me to make it there, it is neither black or African or whatever one wants to call it. It is human. White people have done so for centuries. Asians, such as Indians and Chinese, have done so, and Koreans have done so for centuries. This is why you have a Chinatown in every Western capital. This is why we have so many Indian leaders in Silicon Valley today. This is why we know about such thing called kimchi, because we can go to almost any mall in North America and eat Korean food, aka people sought a better life through immigration, leaving the country because they hate the country. But the situation is not the best in the country. It's the same thing.
I think we'll wrap it up at that. And thank you on that and bringing into attention not only a African challenge, but a challenge for Black countries around the world, those that have large Black populations around. It's not always better on the other side.
It's better on the better side, but things that can make it worse is, as I was speaking in the previous segment, an African demographic boom, if we don't have better governance and we don't create the services and resources, the infrastructures. This is why these white people are becoming terrified, not only of the birth rate, but also the immigration. Listen to what Trump and Vance are saying. They're emptying the prisons in Congo and they're invading and flooding us. Of course, it's not true. But it plays on the psyche of that white fragile person who is seeing the communities change, who is hearing about how the white race demographically is diminishing entering a paranoia of racism and as such, walking with a tiki torch as in the 1930s Nazi rally. You will not replace us. It's all connected. It's all connected.
All right. Well, thank you again, Cesar. I know you are just landing in from your into your hotel, and you came on, and we appreciate that, and it's not taken for granted. Always a pleasure to having you. And as always, if you want to get a hold of Cesar, there's his email address, there's his Facebook page. I've put his contact information on the comments on most of the platforms that you're watching this live on the replay. Always, as always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourself grace. And get some rest tonight.
Sure, I shall.
Take care. All right, everybody. Another episode is done of Black Canada Talking. And as usual, Cesar rocked the house. Just a few things before we exit. So, as always, subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Get us up to 1,570 subscribers. Please, if you're up to it, share out this content. Please and thank you. Also, like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. If you'd like to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm a part of, please feel free to email me, dr.vibe at the dr, vibeshow.com. And I forgot to mention, you can catch replays of this platform along the bottom, but also on Indie Soup TV, indiesoupmedia.tv. A lot of the conversations I host, edited versions, are on that platform, powered by Dr. Tachi out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. About 40 independent content creators. I am one of them. Thank you. Thank you. I also sit on the board of advisors. So you can watch replays of this epic conversation called Black Canada Talking on the Dr. Vibe Show, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and on the website, the drvibeshow.com. This is how we end off all our epic conversations. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And remember to give yourself grace. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith and walk good.